Hi, hope your week went well. Interesting week weather-wise, in so many ways really. This week's sharing I am calling Listening, Forgiving. But if you spell it listening, labelling, for giving. Lots to do with how we label, how we see, how it affects us, how others react to their labels in their head versus your labels in your head. They're all labels. And if we learn to listen to other people's listening, we can then with compassion forgive with the listening. It's a form of coming from an inner silence or from an inner space of nothingness, that with that fullness of nothingness we create with our labels. And a lot of that was playing around one way or another. That's always really what it comes to, is our seeing, our labeling, our sense of normality that we created through labeling and called normality versus what others may see and experience. It is remarkable. We are all in our own universe, and how extraordinary the interaction of those in our field that allow us to reflect who we are. And to see it that way rather than see who they are. I'm often aware of that, say when someone divorces or someone dies, what people say to them actually says more about them than those that are divorcing or about you who have just lost someone. And if we listen, we can hear them. So with this labeling, lots of triggers. If we have a past that the parents behaved in ways that were very upsetting, that can now be projected onto partners who now are not allowed to go anywhere near that, or they're just the same. It's a labeling, and it fractures and separates. But if we can't see it, we can't correct the labels, and we can't find that that's actually not what's happening. This labeling can happen in reverse, where continually feeling labelled as too much or too deep or too loud or too whatever it is, that those who decide it's too tend to label, don't want to deal with it. It's too whatever it is. And it brings about a separation and a feeling of being labelled and misunderstood. And when that goes on, it is really good to create a positive version of apathy, to actually go, it's okay, that it's okay. Everyone doesn't have to get who I am, or how I express myself, or how I process and how I probe, or whatever it is that's too much for the other. This also took place with a being who I saw who's doing remarkable things in the world. I mean, you know, I stood there like a little blip in comparison to the amazing things this being is doing in the world. And it was the voice of when this being was young, not good enough, not not whatever it wasn't good enough. It just wasn't good enough. And what showed up is that part of this lifetime was to actually get the good enough. Now, the only way we're going to get something in this lifetime is to find the adversary that's going to tell us the opposite. Because we need to overcome that. They are our gifts. These beings are our gifts because we came here to receive it, to acknowledge it. And what was very helpful, I hope, going forward, and it might be helpful for some of you too, to actually have a friend on your shoulder, who continuously says to you, that's good, I love how you did that, that's really good. And to really have that feedback of good, because the more we feel good, the more good happens, and the more good comes through because it's good. That doesn't mean everybody has to see it that way, but you can reflect on it and say, according to this inner aspect, it's good. Have you be good. And have others be good. That doesn't mean they have to agree. The other aspect that showed up was that the ability to make decisions, we have to, there sometimes are restrictions within which we need to be, whether it's the space in your house or your budget or whatever it is. There's decisions need to be made according to that. And others can really not agree with those decisions and be very upset about those decisions because they didn't include me, or it wasn't normal for me, or whatever it was. And now I'm not going to have anything to do with you because that is so against my norm. Full on, I say. To know they can decide that if they wish, but you too can decide. And then people just need to really be in the okayness of their decisions and to feel peace in that. We cannot please everyone with our decisions, but our decisions create our life. And to be able to, with your own reasoning and the boundaries, decide what they are. And then people can do with it what they like. They can label it what they like. And what was beautiful in this regard was the being able to go back and speak about it and say, well, my door is always open for you. And leave it at that. So this feeling our own normality, and sometimes that normality has an immense connection that we feel with another being that feels so normal to us and so in connection, that when over time that shifts and that normality doesn't maintain that same perspective that one has, we can ruminate and then start to fight to get it back. Not a good move. Because it eats you up to have to fight for it. Normality isn't a fight, it's a sharing, it's an ease, and it's where we align. And there's a silence in it because it accepts it's of no consequence in the scheme of what we have and who we are together. So quite a bit of hostility versus forgiveness as a theme showed up. And sometimes the hostility was with oneself, feeling so hostile against ourselves and not being able to move because we painted ourselves into a corner. And it could be because of behaviours. We have natural behaviours where so much is natural to us that we have to step outside of that and go to places we prefer not to have to go. Yet it's an important ingredient to complete things. We can feel hostile and stuck because we don't want to do that extra element that isn't as natural to us. And it becomes a hostility and a stuckness. And when it can be seen, it's just something that's unfamiliar to you, that you prefer. It's not your preference, it's not your flow, but it is an ingredient that is needed to see so that you can bring that in to find a completion. So towards the end, a being that I saw, I've known for many years, and what seemed a perpetual stuckness, achieving academic accounts of and creative perseverance, yet feeling it's going nowhere. No movement felt in it. And yet all this creativity was happening at the same time and always does. And what was revealed was like massive amount of lifetimes in the past and the present one, and seeing massive amounts of lifetimes into the future. And out came, what for? So all of this creativity, all of this presence, all of this ongoingness had a deep what for attached to it. And with that what for, it had stopped the energetics within the being of assimilating and digesting, and in the assimilation, we bring in the next bit and we assimilate that and assimilate that. And in that progression of assimilation, which is digesting the fullness of who we are, that I feel digestion is ultimately about, on all levels, it had lost a connection to that cycle of digestion. And it was like a sense of losing self. Meanwhile, still doing this amazing creative process, and of great benefit to others, of great gifts to others, and still what for? So the Spirit replied with, right, we'll just have to shock you to wake you up. Is that what you want? And very often there are shocks in our lives that happen very fast, or they come left field, be it financially, relationship-wise, health-wise. These bits come in the hope of waking us up, or whatever it is that process is for us to digest and find ourselves in. Well, of course, that was not something that was wanted. It was like, yeah, I kind of figure something may happen to actually move me. So it was in her field of what is it going to take? And then with that, what showed up is what we've spoken about before, but it's so ephemeral and it's so metaphysical in so many ways. And it is that gift we all have of the nothingness. And the gift of the nothingness, to be able to see, create, digest, and have that as a process that life is. You know, there's this meditative process that I heard that these monks do, that they have a cup and saucer next to their bed, and when they go to bed, the cup is still face up. And they look at that cup to see whether or not anything has to be dealt with before they go to sleep. Do they need to speak to someone? Do they need to, whatever it is? And when that cup is empty, they turn it upside down. And in the morning, not everybody wakes up in the morning. In the morning, here we have another day. And we turn the cup back up again. And in that nothingness, we create another day. So the readings for this week is Old Man Banksia from the Australian Bush Essences. And the negative conditions were weary, phlegmatic personalities, disheartened, frustrated, and that did show up. And the positive is enjoyment of life, renews enthusiasm and interest in life. For people who are weary, frustrated and disheartened by setbacks, or stuckness, I would say, this essence helps to bring a spark into those people's lives who are heavy and slow-moving. They tend to be reliable, dependable people who steadily plod on, often hiding their weariness while battling on with unceasing effort. The Old Man Banksia is a gnarled and twisted tree, and it seems to be a storehouse of old wisdom. It is one of the first plants discovered by Joseph Banks. Speaks a lot of what happened this week. The card that was pulled for this is listening. Now is the time to listen to your intuition. Slow down and quieten the mind chatter. Listen to your own words and ensure you are using positive language. When you hear others, make sure you really listen to what is being said and remember to listen more than just the words. Listen to your world with your heart. There are a couple of lines from Rumi's Wisdom, and kind of fitting. Keep silent, because the world of silence is a vast fullness. And let silence be the art you practice. Much love. Catch you next week.